not to hear it today because the two bills before us in this rule are real bills that create real jobs for people. Unlike the bills we have seen over the past couple of years, which have led us to a situation where today there are twice as many workers in the government as there are in all of manufacturing in this nation, which is an exact reverse of the situation this nation was in 1960. These are not going to be government jobs which attack the taxpayer and suck the money out of their wallets to fund them. These are going to be real jobs that grow private sector, that expand the economy, that provide wealth, and will provide actually millions of new government revenues coming into this country. The situation we find ourselves today with regard to energy is one that is detrimental to everybody. Everyone that goes to the pump to fill their car recognizes the cost is increasing and will continue to increase. They recognize the situation we are in puts all our jobs in jeopardy, and it's because of the inaction of this particular administration. The President has continually said that he wants to do action, to move forward, to develop American energy, but the actions of his administration have quite frankly failed to meet the rhetoric of the administration. The problem has always been a fundamental flaw in our nation's energy plan. Last May, the Deepwater Horizon accident occurred, which was a tragedy, and we must thank all of those who helped to solve that particular problem. But unfortunately, the administrator's response to that tragedy has turned it into a catastrophe, and one which destroys jobs. Immediately, a moratorium on all sorts of development was put into place. Prior to that moratorium being put into place, there were 52 approved and pending permits. That moratorium was lifted in October, but of those 52, only 10 permits have been issued since that time. 2 of them are new in Deepwater, and 8 of the 52 that were originally done. That means there are over 40 still approved, still stalled in what has become a de facto moratorium, caused by foot dragging of this administration at what one columnist said is moving at a glacial pace. More rigs have left our shore, 12, to go to other places in the world where they are welcome and they are developing energy sources, where they don't have to face the red tape and the foot dragging that have actually been approved by this administration. Perfect example is Seahawk Drilling, a company that had over 500 jobs, 20 rigs, that went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and the president of that country stated only one reason for that bankruptcy and those loss of jobs. It was the de facto moratorium of inaction done by this administration on this area. 2008, in a response to an arbitrary drilling ban that was lifted by both the President and Congress, it created a 5-year plan. Virginia was supposed to start the exploration process in 2011, but the Secretary of Interior delayed that till 2012, and then later delayed all exploration on the Atlantic coast until after 2017. In the Gulf of Mexico, 2 others sales were canceled and moved not from this year when they were supposed to begin, but once again into next year. It became so bad that a judge in New Orleans gave the administration 30 days to start moving on these projects, saying that what was happening by this administration was increasingly inexcusable, and that not acting at all is not a lawful action. The result of this has simply been catastrophic for jobs in America. The Obama administration has admitted in their official memorandum that for those days of their official moratorium, 12,000 jobs were lost. But what is more significant is the de facto moratorium there. An LSU study simply said if this was sustained for 18 months, in the Gulf area would be 24,532 jobs lost, and in the nation, 36,137 jobs lost, simply because of what we are not doing in the Gulf of Mexico. It's very simple to understand how this works. Each platform that is out there drilling has 90 to 150 employees. If you add the production team as well as the exploration team, you can multiply that by a factor of 4. So you have almost per every drilling up to 1,400 jobs that are tied to that particular project. With $1,800 a week as the average wage, that means for every one of those drills that is not put back into production, it is $5 to $10 million per month per platform that is lost to this economy. And the ripple effect within the economy for our energy uses as well as jobs is once again staggering, as this administration is indeed going at a glacial pace. In Virginia alone, 2,000 jobs will be estimated to be lost if indeed that moratorium, de facto moratorium that pushes everything to 2017 is allowed to take place. Now, this action or inaction by the administration costs every American. It costs us at the gas pump as we see cost of running our cars increasing almost daily. And this hurts the poor worse than anyone else. It is estimated that every American will pay $700 more this year for gasoline than last year. Obviously, those at the lower end of the economic scale are the ones who are hurt the most. For every cent that is increased in gas at the pump, that is $1 billion that is taken out of household incomes in this country. And it makes sure that Americans are then put at the mercy of foreign oil development and foreign energy sources who may not necessarily like us and sometimes are just flat out bad guys. But it also has other areas which are affecting everyone. And once again, those at the lower end of the income scale the most. For every dime that diesel goes up, that is $400 million that is added to the agricultural industry, that is packed on to what we eat in our food prices. You have to have oil for fertilizer. As that goes up, the cost of fertilizer goes up. The cost of running machinery goes up. The cost of food goes up. Pharmaceuticals, plastic. If you go into the emergency room, everything that's not metal has some element of oil that developed it. And all of those are increasing. Now, there's only two ways to handle this situation. First, you can go with the old concept of supply and demand and simply increase production, which is what these two bills are trying to do. Or you can go to the approach that this administration seems to be asking us to do, which is to cut our standard of living, accept gasoline prices at the European level, and beg Saudi Arabia to be nice to us, to put our futures in the hands of OPEC, and then amazingly saying we can also solve these problems simply by taxing oil companies at a higher rate. Since 2010, the domestic production of energy in this country has decreased 16%. In this year, next year, and the year after that, we will estimate, unless we make changes, that 250,000 barrels of oil will be decreased in our production rate each of those years. The only area in which any energy production has been increasing is on private property. And unfortunately for this country, almost all of the energy that we have, most of the energy that we can develop, is on public lands, which is controlled by the government, which is doing nothing now to help develop that. This is a time where pragmatism is much better than a failed ideology of restrictions. Now, what these two bills do is simply reverse the job-killing delays that have been taking place. In 1229, it reforms the law to require leaseholders to receive permits to drill before they start drilling, and it will do it for the first time by law, not simply by a regulation. It demands the Secretary of Interior conduct and approve safety reviews, once again for the first time in history. But more importantly, it ends the de facto moratorium by demanding prompt guidelines and action. It says that the Secretary of Interior will have 30 days in which to deal with these issues, and then can have up to 2 15-day extensions, a total of 60 days to do the review. Now, while that may seem to some as a path, it's not when you look at the history of what has been done. Before the moratorium went into effect, it was taking 5 to 15 days to do the drilling leases and permits. One company was done in 9 days, just recently. What is the problem is that most of these are simply not being done simply because of inaction. It also says for those that were approved prior to the May 27th moratorium, you got 30 days to get them going again. This is plenty of time to do the work. It also does something else for the first time, but provides an expedited hearing process so that legal rights are not lost, they are protected, but you will not go back into a concept of a never-ending lawsuit moratorium. In 1230, the bill says that recognizes that this year will be the first time since 1958 that we have the possibility of no offshore lease sales. And it wants to reverse that action to proceed promptly with the 5-year plan so that things, for example, in Virginia will be in effect within 1 year. And those that were scheduled in the Gulf can be done within 1 year of the passage of this bill. This bill simply will create billions in Federal Reserve revenues coming in, and it will create billions in our economy, and it will create jobs. I hate to say this, but under President Obama, the cost of energy has skyrocketed. The administration has actively blocked and delayed energy production. It's cost jobs. It's raised energy prices. It's made the United States more reliant